All right, very good. It is 6 o'clock, and welcome to our Duncanville City Council meeting for September the 15th, 2020. And all City Council members are present, and a number of city staff are also with us. So I want to go ahead and get us underway. In accordance with the Office of the Governor, based on March 16, 2020, is extended by the Governor on June 12, 2020. City Council for the City of Duncanville will conduct City Council regular meetings by a combination of telephone, video conference, and in person at 7 p.m., which is going to be coming up later. In order to advance our public health goals of limiting face-to-face meetings and social distancing. This is an open meeting conducted by telephone, video conference, and in person, with limited access to our City Council chambers. However, we as City Council are going to be continuing to present our City Council meetings remotely, but any citizens wishing to make an appearance in person at City Council chambers may do so, but must have been registered prior to 4 o'clock this afternoon. Is my understanding, City Secretary, no one has done that as yet. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Nobody has registered.
Thank you. Okay. So we will continue on with our business, and I'll make some more housekeeping announcements in terms of the administration of City Council meetings and technology as we get ready for our city, or as we enter into our City Council meeting. Understand that the audience is in listen mode. However, citizens that registered to speak must have done so. Their microphones will be turned on by the City Secretary. City Council members, if you wish to speak, two ways to do that. You can wave it with your camera physically so that it catches my eye or City Secretary's eye, or at the bottom in the participants section, you can do the raise your hand, and City Secretary Downs watches that particular icon and lets me know if you wish to speak. As we get into the City Council meeting, as we have been doing in the past, all City Council votes will be done by roll call. So getting into our work session and our briefings, the first thing that we have to discuss in item 1 is discussing the agenda items. I'll turn it over to Interim City Manager, Mr. Frederickson. So, Mr. Frederickson, if you go ahead, please, with those items.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You have several consent items. I just want to make a quick note. We're going to ask that the City Council that we postpone consideration of item C, and I'll explain it here a bit. Item A is the approval minutes for your August 4th meeting and also your August 13th budget workshop. Is the approval of an item for drainage improvements on Meadow Creek Drive. This replacement of a drainage system that was designed in '83 for 25-year storm event. We will be replacing it with one that will handle a 100-year storm event. So basically upgrading the pipe along that system. Item C, we're going to ask that council postpone that item. We had some new information come in this afternoon that we need to evaluate as we look at the bid submittals, and so we would like to postpone that item for consideration on item C.
Mr. Cooks, you had a comment there?
Hey, I do. Let me ask something on B for just a second here, Paul.
Yes.
If we have to do anything to make the homeowner, I remember looking at this pool or something. Is that the homeowner that had the pool that's backed up back to the waterfall? And if so, do we have to do anything on that?
Let me ask Mr. Ramey to answer that question. I'm not aware of any work, but Mr. Ramey?
Sir, to answer your question, the only part that we are, this contract and the city's liability is limited to the driveways that will get torn up as part of this job.
Okay.
The homeowner submitted a claim to TML for, and he still has that right, depending on what the state of his property following the repairs. If he says that was attributed to that, But at this time, Texas Municipal League says that the city is not liable for any of that stuff.
So if I recall, in his backyard, the wall was shifting or something, the pool, and so we're not responsible for that at all. Is that what I'm hearing?
I haven't been out there in a while, but there was some, the issue, he was saying that there were some issues with the pool deck. And he made it, he's free. He was free. He made a claim. TML said that was not attributed to the city. At the end of the day, the original work was not done by the city. The original work was done by a developer putting it in, and the city was only responsible for inspecting it prior to acceptance. It's that system that has failed, and that was why TML said that at this time, the city is not accountable for any of those issues that the claim that he made.
All right, thank you.
Item, again, we wish to postpone item C. Item D is consideration of the household hazardous waste interlocal agreement with Dallas County. This is an annual agreement that we have with Dallas County to participate in their hazardous waste program. It allows, for example, residents to go and drop their household hazardous waste off at a collection site off Plano Road, but also, two, we participate in annual events with Dallas County when we have our cleanup events throughout the year. So this is a one-year agreement with Dallas County. And item E is a resolution agreeing to go into an agreement with Tri-STEM. This is a contingency agreement. In essence, they will audit our franchise fees that are owed by the city, either electric, telephone, cable, gas, and so forth. It's a contingency contract, so they only get paid for those accounts that have not been that are not being remitted to the city of Duncanville. That would be for 30% for at least 2 years. And so we have not done this in a while. It has been several years at least. And so we wanted to move forward with this. And again, it's always prudent to have these kind of audits to make sure that we're getting all the franchise fees that are owed to the city of Duncanville. And then item F is a resolution and agreement with Dallas County Health and Human Services for the mosquito program, ground control program, which we certainly have utilized in the last several months, I must say. So this is again a one-year agreement setting a rate of $185 per hour. So when any of our 5 traps, basically we have positive cases within those traps, the agreement is that Dallas County will go out and conduct spraying exercises for those particular areas surrounding the traps. I know, again, in the last several months, we've had, certain areas, isolated areas of the city that have had ground control spraying for mosquitoes. We've even had a couple of instances where it's been citywide. And again, this is for a 1-year contract.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. Going through the consent items, Mr. Frederickson. With that, only a single question from Councilmember Cooks. So moving back to our work session, we're going back to our briefings, and we'll go to item number 2. This is a briefing to City Council on the drainage utility fee billing. And Mr. Ramey, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Wait on the slides to get loaded. Again, good evening. The purpose of this briefing tonight is just to update you on the drainage utility fee and some changes that we're recommending and wanting your feedback as the city transitions to a new, converts over to the Tyler products and some new capabilities that it gives us. Next slide, please. So again, the drainage utility fee program is nothing new to Duncanville. As you can see, it's been around since 1997. We did do a major tweak or a change in 2018. Originally, the fees were based on parcel size exclusively. So you paid a fee based on just size, even if it was mostly grass and a little bit of pavement. But you had a large parcel, you had one fee. And so the old system did not actually correlate into actual usage of stormwater. So in September 2018, we updated the drainage utility fee ordinance to change our methodology for calculating the fee, again, for the non-residential properties, which is now based on impervious area. So there's no changes in the housing. What we've done is actually, in 2018, we actually calculated how much impervious area was in each of the non-residential, and then use that number to determine the fee versus the old, more arbitrary number of just parcel size. So again, with the conversion that we're looking at going from our old Banner system and utility billing to Tyler Munis products are giving us some more flexibility, and that's what we wanted to talk with y'all again tonight. Next slide, please. So again, just to reiterate, the drainage utility fee covers drainage administration, and you see it pays for 4 FTEs of employees, which is mainly the drainage crew and a little bit of the engineer. We have, again, the O&M, it pays for the O&M of our stormwater system. And then it helps us with MS4 compliance. That's the municipal separate storm sewer system. And then the drainage utility fee also covers capital improvement projects related to drainage, erosion control, like our bag wall program, drainage infrastructure, Meadow Creek project that we just brought to you as part of the consent agenda. And a little bit of the drainage programs contributes to alley projects because there's usually a drainage component. And then it covers straight drainage studies and master planning. Next slide, please. So again, this is the current drainage utility fee structure. The purpose of this brief is not to, again, change this structure. I just wanted to sort of do some refresher for council as well as for anybody that is participating remotely from the public. So again, what we're looking at is our fees are gauged on or assessed on impervious area. So as you see in the picture, what we're not counting is all the grass, but we are counting is the parking lot and the roof of the building. And again, everything is based on contribution into the stormwater system in equivalent residential units of 4,300 square feet. So again, in Duncanville, each house is considered one ERU, and at 4,300 square feet, so the roof plus the patio plus their driveway, and that's $3.50. And then what we do is we look at the different areas and say, well, how many houses worth of runoff is this person contributing? So someone, you know, a bigger parcel may have 10 houses worth of runoff and get assessed appropriately. Next slide, please. So currently with the drainage utility fee, all fees are billed through the city utility bill, but it's for active accounts based on those mailing addresses. And so what we've done in the ordinance, again, our current system, Banner, is very old and very limited in capability. And so we have certain instances, because we can only bill through Banner and active meters currently, if a parcel did not have an active account, we were unable to bill them. We had no way to collect. When we had non-residential parcels with multiple water meters, so like a shopping center where you may have several water meters, the ordinance allowed for specified will divide the drainage fee equally amongst all meters. But then if a certain meter was inactive, then that portion of the fee was not able to be collected. And again, we've had multiple problems, just challenges with the obsolete software that we currently have. And again, we do have a plan to upgrade in the spring, and we'll talk about that in the following slides. Next slide, please. So here's some what we're recommending, and that once you're as we go forward, once your feedback on. So again, Tyler Munis utility billing software goes live in the spring. We're going to keep the residential customers billed the same way as part of the utility bill. They'll just get $3.50. But the big change is we want to, in lieu of assessing bills, stormwater fee or the drainage utility fee for non-residential properties, only when they have an active water meter, we're proposing converting it into a drainage utility permit that's issued annually. And so what we're proposing, and again, what's your feedback on, is to do an annual lump sum fee for non-residential properties. And then we just mail it directly to the property owner based on DCAD. So that allows us to collect the full amount from all non-residential parcels. And you know, before we were, and it also goes directly to the landowner and is not part of a tenant's water bill. The main reason that we're looking for, you know, better opportunities to collect from everybody, as you saw from the previous slides, the drainage fund is an enterprise fund, and we count on that money as a city for to run the program, to run the CIP program, to keep our infrastructure maintained, improve our infrastructure, take care of and have the crews that actually take care of it. And so we need to make sure that everybody is paying their fair share. Next slide, please. So again, for council input, just some guidance from you regarding the proposed method of billing non-residential properties in terms of transitioning to an annual permit versus billing them monthly for the active accounts. The next thing we were talking about was just wanted to get your input or let you know what our plans were to communicate this change. So as we said, right now the tenants in these buildings are the ones paying the in the case of a rent, you know, if it's a tenant situation, they're paying their the utility fee, the drainage utility fee is part of their water bill. And so what we want to do is make sure we gave the property owners enough time before the spring so that if they need to go and leases, so that they have the money, the property owner has the money and is prepared to pay for the permit. They have the appropriate notification. And then again, we would go to DCAD, which has the list of all the property owners. That's where they pay their property taxes. And that's how we would let them know of our change so that they could make their appropriate, activities on their end in response. And then the last thing was delinquent charges. So as I talked about earlier, this is the fees from the drainage fee go into the enterprise fund that takes care of our drainage utility infrastructure. And so we count on those funds to for the program, for the O&M side of things, as well as the CIP capital improvement side. And so currently under the current model, by having it part of attached to the city utility bill, non-payment of the drainage fee would be considered part of a non-payment of a water bill. And so the penalty for non-payment is the same as non-payment of the water bill. And so you could get your water cut off. But when we bill the property owners directly, we don't want to cut off. We no longer have a way to cut off water from, we'll say a tenant of a shopping center. We're not going to cut their water off for this, but we need to have some methods in place to make sure that we can collect from the property owner so that our stormwater drainage utility fund stays healthy. So what we were proposing was a late fee for the drainage utility fee. So if they're 20 days late, there's a 10% penalty. That's the same as if you're 20 days late on a water bill. And then past that, if they do not pay the drainage utility fee, then we would put a lien on their property. And we've also talked about the possibility of not allowing any new COs issued for that property as long as they have delinquent drainage utility fees. As it says, I'm still working with Bob Hager. I've discussed these with him, and I'm sure he can chime in with some findings as we've been discussing these. But the no CO is similar to what we do with the rental registration program for single family rentals, in that they cannot, the way that ordinance is written is that the property owners are not allowed to rent out rental properties if they owe the city money. I'm sure you guys have seen on our weekly updates over the last year how we've steadily been getting paid back a number of liens that have sat around, been out there on the books for many years, by virtue of the fact that these property owners, when have those liens on those rental properties, were able to get those paid off. So again, that is where I wanted to get your input. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you. If you or the council have any questions about what I'm proposing tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Ramey, I have some questions or comments, concerns, however we want to categorize that.
Sure.
Putting myself in the seat of our non-residential property owners in our business, basically our business owners, you know, Cabinet Works, Costco, the school district, some manufacturers that we have, and business owners, et cetera. This, to me, presents a cash flow problem. Whereas in the past, it was a monthly type of bill when that can be budgeted. Even we have to budget certain things coming up on a monthly basis versus the annual increase. I have deep concern over taking this increase or this particular fee and bulking it up into an annual payment, because I recall when we discussed this, some of those amounts were very, very significant. And as I said, putting myself in the seat of some of our CEOs and so forth around our city as business owners, I would have a great deal of difficulty coming up with a way to budget that particular kind of bulk up increase as a cash flow issue for my business. So I personally have some deep concern over the proposal, not the delinquency fees and so forth, and not the processing, but making this an annual fee versus something that is done on a monthly basis. So, you know, like you're asking for input tonight, and that would be my input. Possibly before we move ahead as a council on this, maybe question some of the primary account holders in our city to see how they would be able to budget for this type of a thing, and whether it would be something that they would consider usurious on the part of the city. So that's my input. Welcome any other input from any of our council members.
Can you back up a slide on the slide deck so we can stay on the council input slide? Thank you.
Councilmember Jameson had her hand raised.
Yes, Councilmember Jameson. You're muted. There you
Am
go.
I muted now? Okay.
There you go.
That was my question also, was the problem that you've moved it from a water bill to an annual? Do we have a problem with billing? Can we not bill that monthly? Is that
The challenge that we have, and again, based on your input, we'll continue further. The challenge that we have now is all the accounts on the utility billing side are tied to the customer that's paying for the water. And that's not
I
necessarily,
understand that,
that's not necessarily the property owner.
but I mean, we can't, right? But you can't set up a separate monthly billing to the property owner. I realize it was an easy vehicle to use the water bill, but because the owner of the property could in fact be different than the person using the property, can we not still set up a monthly billing process?
We certainly can talk with the Munis folks about that. The main reason why we had talked about the annual, and again, if the council favor the monthly, we'll certainly work on making that the way the fulfilling your intent. The main thing is trying to figure out within staff how we can do it. And one of the things that my staff is most trained on was annual permits. And if we issued it out of my office. And so that was one of the things that we had looked at. And again, subject to your input, if the annual permit was something that you were good with, then it made it very easy for me to pull it into my shop, which was something when we pulled it out of the utility bill, helped within the functions that I have.
I understand that, but I have a question too about the collection end. Do we
Sure.
have a problem with collections? Because I know that if you do it on a monthly basis and we have a problem with collection, then that exacerbates the situation. If you're trying to collect on one bill versus 12, do we have a problem?
Well, the collection problem on the drainage side is more tied to inactive accounts because we don't have the building is vacant or that suite is vacant. Richard would have to talk with you about collection because again, we get their money. If they're paying their water bill, we're getting the drainage fee also.
Right.
If they're not paying the water bill, then they get their water cut off. And usually they come in and pay. When we divorce those from the non-residential, that's why we've got to get a little bit more creative on how we collect, because it's not as simple as saying, well, you don't pay the city services bill. And again, where we're not collecting now from the drainage utility side is when we have inactive water meters because the suite is vacant or the building that has one water meter is vacant. And so there is no vehicle currently under banner, there's no vehicle currently to collect that money. We don't have that billing software, a robust software program at this time. And that's where we're going to in the spring. So
But do we have any properties that have zero water billing going on? Because it looks to me like, and I don't know, I guess Bob would have to know if it could be used that way, but that would be the hammer, is that water to the facility that you own will be turned off. The fact that those people are paying their water bill, how would that be different than if the person who owns the property also owned that business and they were paying the water bill, but they weren't paying their
So
permit?
let me jump in there, Greg, because that is what's happening. What we have is we have a property owner that may have separate tenants. But if that property has 5 tenants, but only 3 have a water bill, they're paying basically 3/5 of what they should be paying. And so because the system is set up to only bill to the water meter account, it basically means that property owner is getting a pass on the ones that don't have meters. And so, and again, it was only designed because we enacted the ordinance, and then basically, best way to put it, we took this ordinance as a round peg to put in a square hole, if you will. This will correct it, because overall, every property.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah,
Do you
but
understand my question? My question is, if you take your example, you have 5 people, 3 have water, 2 don't. So you tell that owner, your property will not receive water, period, if you don't get this fee paid. Legally, can we do that? Because the fact that these tenants are paying their bills is between the owner and the tenant, and the owner is not paying their bill. And that, to me, seems like the only hammer you have to encourage them to pay.
I think you've answered the question, because that's what's happening, is that we're not billing the owner. We're billing basically the water meter, which is what Banner is set up for. So that's the square, or the round hole, if you will. That's the problem, is Banner's what set up the system, because it only bills to those meters. What we're proposing now, switch that to all property owners and get away from that water meter account billing system and move to the property owner billing system. Again, we can still do that with property owners, but I mean, in essence, we know that we have an overall universe of let's just 100%. But if we're only getting 80%, we have 20% that's been taking advantage of it. So if we can switch to the new system, that'll help, I think, get us better coverage. And so
I don't think anybody has a problem with charging the owner of the property.
Right.
What we're asking,
we would get away from the water billing system, is what I'm suggesting.
Right.
That is exactly
And we don't
what
have
I'm
a problem with that. I
Yes.
think what we're asking is, can they not be billed monthly? And will that bring a problem if they are billed monthly with your collections?
We can look into that. I mean, again, we can look at doing monthly, quarterly, yearly. So we'll come back to council on that. What we're really trying to do is get away from the utility, the water billing, and go into a property code. So yes. But to answer your question on the monthly, we can look into doing something like that as we look in our billing system.
Yeah, because
my intent was to not, the way we were going to it, again, was to get it, but not to hold the tenants hostage to a water bill for non-payment of drainage. I wanted to make it, we wanted to tie the penalties for not paying the drainage by the property owner to the property owner. And the way we can get to the property owner is lien his property, and if we're allowed, forbid him from renting out spaces to get more money.
Well, that's the only thing you have.
But I don't want to.
Renting.
But if the property, if a tenant sitting in the property and they're paying their water bill and they're paying with their trash and their sewer bill and everything else with the city, and they're good with us, I don't want to affect the operation of an individual water holder.
But a lien wouldn't affect them until they sold. I mean, they could not sell for 30 years.
Okay, well, Mr. Ramey, Mr. Federickson, I believe that there's been some adequate concern voiced by Councilmember Jameson, myself, in terms of this needs another look or just some additional research, please. That's what you're asking for, some input at this time. We don't have to pull a trigger on this at the moment. But it seems as though that technology is driving some of our business decisions, and some of those business decisions can negatively affect our property owners, our non-residential property owners. So I think you have enough input. And I see Councilmember Cooks, I see that your mic is off. Did you have some input as well?
Oh, I was just going to agree. No use to me going back to the same point. I was going to agree monthly or quarterly.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else, any other input from any other council members? I think, Mr. Ramey, you've got plenty to work on. As I said, my deep concern is technology is driving a factor that's going to be a very serious decision being made by some of our non-residential property owners, not just our shopping centers that have tenants, but where we have our churches and the school district and other independent standalone like Pioneer, Cabinet Works, and so forth.
But Mayor, let me make a comment. Our technology now is negatively affecting the ability of us to have an equitable system. That's what we're trying to convey. I agree with you that we need to come up with that system, but right now we passed an ordinance to then be accommodated by a system that is not equitable. And that's what we need to fix. So I do agree with that, but I want to make clear that we're not being driven by the technology. We're already basically being held to the current technology that we had because we passed an ordinance that didn't fit with the technology.
Okay, got it.
We're trying to bring those two together.
Okay, got it. Understand. Thank you. Okay. Believe we can move on to item number 2B.
What is this?
Which is the city census. Mr. Frederickson, you're on this one. I know Mr. Cook's asked for this.
Well, Mayor, yeah, I'll defer to Councilmember Cooks. We had a little bit of a conversation again today. Mayor, I would also refer council to an email that I sent a couple of weeks ago that outlined what our efforts have been from a city perspective when it came to the outreach involved with the 2020 census. That in essence, we're really have been, because of COVID and other outside factors, we've been really relegated to messaging really with social media, certainly with our newsletter. We've put, again, we've increased the amount of time, for example, on our LED board that we would remind people about the census. And so we have really been trying to push this out. And again, credit to the council. I know that every meeting, the council will bring up the issue to remind people that the census is extremely important, that they need to participate. And so the purpose of the email was to kind of let you know where we were as far as those analytics. We're about 70%, which is really actually very good, historically speaking, when you compare it to previous census efforts. But more importantly, we're obviously above the average for the United States, above the average for the state. And while we may be a percentage here or there when it comes to some of the other cities within Dallas County, we're doing very well. But when it comes to the social media efforts, I just want to kind of really press upon everybody to understand that there's a point where you can have some saturation. And I know our PIO has explained to me that we've actually had a couple instances where we're getting feedback from certain residents saying enough already. We understand that, but the greater goal for us anyway is to keep pushing the importance of the census. But I think what we're running into now with less than about 30% of those within the city that have not responded, there's going to be a point where they may not be connected to social media. They may not be getting the newsletters. They may be getting them and just avoiding signing up altogether. So I think what was just important is, and I appreciate Councilmember Cook's pushing this issue. It is important because as we all know, there's a lot of things that are tied to U.S. Census that impacts local government, impacts the county, certainly impacts our state when it comes to federal resources. But that was really it. I know I'll handle any questions that we may have, but it just kind of more of an update. This is the period for the census does close at the end of this month. So, and I think it just behooves everyone to continue to push the message to get those that have not already answered their census, submitted their census, to get that in.
Yeah, Mr. Cooks and Mr. McBurnett.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Paul. That was one of the reasons I reached out to Paul and asked what was the update on the census, just to kind of get a feel where we were. I know what the percentage were, and I know the challenges that they've had over this time period. And then I was contacted by a friend who's the person that knocked on the door. I'll make it easy. The person that's knocking on the door to say anything you guys can do to help citizens awareness. And I made him aware of Paul's email before then and shared that information. But one of the challenges, I think, was the apartment. I think some of the apartment owners, I know they were limited on how they can relay information. They were somewhat afraid of who the census people were, even with all the information being shared. So I took the information that Paul had, Christian put it to me in a little letter form, and I personally in our district went through and gave the apartment owners those letters in my card and say, if these guys stop, whatever you can do to help them will be great. And so I know that Don is always pushing in on every comment, and I was just kind of reinforcing that as well. But just wanted to make sure we, as a council, we just continue to do it. So thank you, staff, for your leadership for making it work as well. But just wanted to brought up that the apartments are the really ones that, in talking to the group, that they're really struggling with, and the apartment managers can help.
Right. Thank you, Mr. McBurnett.
And mine was really, it's the enumerators are out, Mark. So that's what it is. The enumerators are out and they are knocking on doors. So hopefully we can get the numbers up.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt. I want to make one more comment. This has been an unusual year. This has been a perfect storm with COVID and many of the other issues that we have nationally. For us to really be at 70%, again, I don't mean to try to say we need to pat ourselves on the back on this, but to be at 70% with just all the challenges that we've had, in essence, we've not been able to have meetings and events and those kinds of things. So we've really been relegated to just a small avenue in which we can communicate our efforts.
And I think when you add to it that we have some historically difficult areas to get some counts in. I know the Census Bureau has identified some of our areas as what they call hard to count, because people just choose that live in those residential areas. They choose not to participate, and that's why the enumerators have to go knocking on doors. So you take that perfect storm, you take COVID, and you take everything else going on, and then you take some of the concerns people have about giving information, which is misinformation. They're being told wrong things, and they're scared to give some of their information. So put all that together, and even though we're at 71.3, I think is what I just saw that our latest number is at. While it's good, it's still not good enough. So those enumerators really have a very hard job ahead of them, and we ask that, as much as possible, our citizens do cooperate and understand that this is a very essential activity that we're doing. So, yeah, and I know that looking at our weekly activity in terms of what our PIO puts out for the weekly news report, we have 4 different channels of social media. And yes, they are being deluged, but we have to keep doing that. And, somebody can say, okay, I don't like reading it. Okay, I understand that. Skip that part and go to what interests you. But we really do need to keep pushing in order to get this count done, and get it up into the mid 80s if we possibly can by the end of September. And that's really right around the corner when you think about this. We're in a hard place right now. And Mr. Cooks, you had something else?
Barry, I totally agree. Again, we just kind of not beating a dead horse, but it is important. I totally agree. And that's why, again, I mentioned if anyone has apartments in their district, and we all do, if you could just stop by and just let them know they'll be stopping by. I think that was one of the key areas that they were struggling in. And then remind me, we did a $5,000 amount to the county. Do you recall what that was for? And I know they probably combined it with everybody else, but do you recall what they were going to do
that is a contract issued by the county, and for those cities that wish to participate in the cost of that contract, that particular contractor is going to deploy resources and to get as much of the count as possible in terms of publicity and so forth, and working the streets and getting everything done. So yes, that was a kind of a heavy bill for us to pay, but that it was either you couldn't pay partial, we couldn't do it pro rata. Our share was $5,000 based on the population. And that contract, I have to say, I'm not up to speed in terms of what the impact or results are as yet. But yes, that contract was definitely to get as high a possible count for our city that we could. Did you have any other information on that, Mr. Frederickson, or maybe Todd? I don't know if he was aware of that contract or not.
No, there's a contract with a firm. Again, many of the counties or many of the cities within Dallas County contributed funds depending on population. And again, it was to kind of really combine our resources. They did also pamphlets, printouts. They're also, again, going to have events throughout the county, again, to raise awareness. But due to COVID, a lot of those things were canceled. So again, a lot of the push has been on a lot of the social media and other advertising venues that would, but they could work.
And I just, there was some emails that I saw, came in late last week. I did respond to one today coming out of the National League of Cities on a national effort to get people, I'm sorry, I have to back up. That's on voting. It's not on census. So rewind on that. What I was talking about was getting people out to vote. So any other issues on this one before we move on to something else? All right, we're good? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our briefings and presentations. And I believe we are 15 minutes away from City Council.
No, Mayor, we have the City Council calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I'm sorry. Item C, City Council calendar, Mr. Frederickson, my apologies.
Not a problem. So if I could, once they put the calendar on. So we discussed at your last meeting regarding the calendar. Council decided on a couple of items. Number one, to continue the online council meetings, virtual council meetings through September. We would revisit that at this time. The council meeting. So if you go to the October calendar, please. So council decided to cancel their October 6th meeting for National Night Out to give council the opportunity to go out in the neighborhoods and visit with neighborhood groups for National Night Out. We also pushed the meetings to October, joint meetings in particular with P&Z to discuss the zoning ordinance project, also to visit with the Park Board to talk about especially the Harrington Park project, and then also with the EDC to discuss policy recommendations as well. And so these are proposed joint meeting dates with the idea that we would like to try to have council and those particular boards or commissions meet in person with council. We think we can accomplish that by having those meetings in the council chambers and be able to accommodate the fact that we can also televise those so the public can see the deliberations that occur in each of those individual meetings and stay consistent basically with the governor's order for social distancing and not having large groups. The other question then becomes on council's desire to continue with the virtual meetings as we are now through October, perhaps November, December, or is there a time where council would like to begin meeting in person? Again, in the council chambers, we are able to have dividers there. Again, we're able to televise that and allow for the general public to again, watch those deliberations. And then one other question, again, is council has discussed having a workshop where we can list and discuss a number of topics of importance to council. I know from a staff perspective, have a couple items that we'd like to brief either at a council meeting or we can do this at the workshop. So we've proposed a couple of dates, the 10th or the 17th. Again, they're Saturday meetings. We would propose at 9, but however, we're open to suggestions from the council. If we would rather do those during the week, maybe start earlier and do something of that nature, we certainly can do that. So I will kind of bring it back to the council for your input.
Well, I think the easiest way to handle this, you posed a lot of questions to us, Paul. And
You're going to go one by one?
well, let me go to the one question in terms of continuing to hold virtual city council meetings or not. And my feeling on that is until the governor says something to force us back into meeting in the city council chambers, I would prefer that we continue to do remote. There's a lot of personal reasons, how many of us on city council are in that high risk category, in some terms of what's best for each of our personal safety, what's best for our aggregate personal safety and staff, as well as our citizens. So in terms of staying with virtual city council meetings, I'm in favor of doing that until the governor says we have to go back. And he pulls back on the disaster. In terms of the joint meetings, there again, I know the city council chamber has been set up with separation. And if y'all are in town and want to drop in and take a look at the city council and see what's been done there, I think you'll see that there's everything that's possible to keep us safe has been done in terms of separation with materials. But it's going to be difficult to operate. It's not going to be a congenial atmosphere, but it's something that has to be done. The joint meetings, if we can do those with the technology, and I know that our IT folks are working on technology to see if we can continue to do virtual joint meetings until such time as I see that happen. And my personal preference is that we continue to postpone those joint meetings until we have the technology able to do everything 100% virtual. But I'd like to go around the table just to get some input. So starting, Joe, do you have any comments? District 1?
Yes, sir. I agree. Just keep them Zoom meetings until, same thing with the meetings with our partners, DECD and so on and so forth. That's really about it.
Okay. All right. Don, District 2?
Thank you, Mayor. Paul or even Jessica, if she was on, the DC EDC board had an interesting meeting where they showed the technology. Is that what we have that we can?
That is the technology that we have, but that only, it worked well for just the single board commission. So what we would suggest is to have the joint meeting in the council chambers. And we think we can get to the point where we can have council and the board in the council chamber have separation and be able to televise that meeting and be able to, for example, focus on the person who's speaking. So for example, if we have the folks that were presenting on the zoning ordinance, for example, we can not only show them, we can also show members of either the council or the planning and zoning commission that may have separate questions. So we think we can accomplish that, but it probably need to be in the council chambers. And it wouldn't be on the dais, and so you'd be scattered within the auditorium itself, and we would kind of position folks so that we could be able to get both of those things accomplished where they can see and hear the discussion.
Thank you, sir. So, Mayor, I guess I'm in agreement with you all. As we can do this virtual as long as we kind of need to, but I would like to try to get joint meetings and such move forward, or at least start trying to have them.
Okay. Monty, District 3.
I'm okay with whatever the majority decides.
Okay. District 4, Mark.
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of us moving forward with meeting again as soon as we can, only if consideration of some who's in that high risk situation, to take that in consideration. I wouldn't want to just base it upon what the governor has will set forth, but more so the individual consideration for our own council members. But if we got to a point where an individual council member was able to for us to kind of get back together, that would be better. So I'm gonna go with us not having us in favor of getting back together. I also, like Dunn, would like to see us not postpone too much more the joint meetings and see how we can make this work. We still have to run a city, and so I think doing this thing together only puts us behind the 8 ball versus in front of it if we keep postponing those meetings. So I hope we would get our joint meetings up and going as soon as we can.
Agreed. Okay. Johnette, District 5.
Am I muted?
No, you're on. We've got you.
Okay. It's fine with me. Zoom is fine with me. I shared with Paul today, my daughter has been here from medical school, and she got a call from her roommate yesterday saying she was sick, and she is at school in their apartment, and she's being tested for COVID, and she's going to let her know because Lauren has to go back for clinical skills. There's one thing they have to do in person. So, I mean, you just don't know. It was like, what? You know, everybody's trying to do the best they can, and it still rears its ugly head. So whatever, you know, whatever it takes to hopefully do away with it.
Okay. Patrick at large.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we have you.
Okay, good. I'm really very concerned about having in-person meetings. At this point, I would rather continue with Zoom for the immediate future.
Okay.
That's it.
So can I get, Mayor, one more bit of clarification? So would you be willing to hold the joint meetings, I think maybe P&Z for the zoning with Zoom? Would that be an acceptable alternative? If we ever accomplish that?
If you can pull it off to where you think it can run well and we can actually get some work accomplished, sure, let's do it as soon as possible.
Okay.
And run it, you know, I don't want to call it, run it virtually as best as possible.
Okay.
So are we still, would that be still shooting for the 5th of October for the first for P&Z, or shooting for the 19th of October with P&Z?
Let's,
It was 2 meetings.
yeah, we had 2 meetings for
there are 2. All right, so I guess we're shooting for the 5th. If we can pull it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do and communicate back. And then one other issue is the workshop. I just discovered there's a conflict on the 10th. So is the 17th of October, do we want to do it on a Saturday, or would we rather do it during the week? Yeah, I mean, the other problem, of course, is there's a lot of other meetings that council has. You know, one of the idea is the, you know, truck pull may be held on the 24th. Probably be a distraction. We'd mentioned Saturday, but I know that conflicts with some other things. So, you know, we could do something during the evening as well.
Any inputs on the workshop at this time, or you want to keep chewing on it? Yeah, Don, I see your hand up.
Mayor, I was also going to say is that September 29th is open, and that's something I had mentioned the last time. If we have something we need to conduct, that might be a time to look at having another meeting, since we're not going to meet on the 6th. the work.
Part of it also- Well, part of it is also us preparing the materials in time to be able to pull that off on some of those.
Okay.
I think we
Well,
might.
I'm open just whenever we can get it done.
Okay.
Well, for sure, October 10th is out. I know, I think the conflict you're talking about there, Paul, is the event at Armstrong Park, the collection. Is that what you're talking about?
I think that was it, but I'll verify that. And there's another conflict that I was thinking about too. And then of course, the 14th is 14th through the 16th is TML, but that's obviously a virtual meeting. So if we have something on the 17th, we can still make that work. Would the 17th be acceptable? Okay.
Not Saturdays.
Yeah, that's Saturday, October 17th.
Well, Saturday's not good for me.
17th is a problem for me.
Okay. What about the 24th?
24th I could do. Anybody else on the 24th? Any nods, thumbs up,
I'm
hands?
good on the 24th.
Mark's good on the 24th. Johnette?
Saturday's not good for me.
No Saturday? Okay.
No.
Well, we need everybody. So if there's one out, we need to relook. Golly.
What about any time during the week?
We're looking at what, 3 hours on this?
Probably.
October 27th, a Tuesday.
Yes, for here.
Checking 27th. Yeah, 27th is okay on my calendar. Joe, I see your thumb up. Okay. Don, 27th.
Yeah, the 27th would work too. Also, we haven't got to November, but on Tuesday the 3rd is election day.
Yeah.
So somewhere in there, we're missing some meetings. So you know, we just need to make it work.
Okay. Let's see, where were we? Oh, Monty, 27th of October.
Hey, with me.
Good. Mark, 27th. Johnette, 27th.
Yeah, it's okay.
Good. Patrick, 27th.
Yes.
Okay, 27th of October, strategic planning, or let's call it the workshop. The workshop, looking at 3 hours. So probably starting at what, 5 o'clock and bringing in some sandwiches. That work?
We'll make it work.
Okay. All right, very good. Anything else on the calendar, Paul?
Did you say something about November?
I did. Don had some concern about November 3rd being election.
That would be our council meeting as well as election day.
Okay. So we're still planning on having the council meeting then.
I would anticipate so.
I wouldn't recommend having a council meeting on election evening.
Okay.
Can
Any other thoughts?
we go to November, Tracy? So are we canceling? Do we want to cancel the meeting on the 3rd?
Let's hear some thoughts from anybody.
Yeah, it's election night. I think that would be a good idea.
To cancel.
Yeah, I agree. We should cancel.
Okay. All right. Good suggestion, Don. So we're canceling November 3rd City Council. Anything else?
That's it for me, Mayor.
Okay, very good. All right. So City Secretary, we are done now with briefings and presentations, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, we have an option now to open up our city council meeting it is right around 7. We're doing pretty good for a change. To go into executive session or postpone executive session until after city council. I really have no idea how long executive session will take. So I would like to be able to give you some advice on whether we do that now or later, but I really can't because there's some matters of great interest there. And we have a pretty good agenda ahead of us as well, plus we have public hearing. So I'm thinking because of the public hearing for item 5A, for items for individual consideration, in consideration of our citizens that may want to speak during the public hearing, why don't we go ahead, if it's okay with everybody, let's go ahead and open city council and course through the agenda and take executive session at the end. Would that be okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. All right, thank you very much for that. So let's see, the official timestamp is 7:06 p.m., September 15th, 2020. I'm calling to order the Duncanville City Council meeting on this date at 7:06 p.m. Thank you very much. Now we'll cover some particular items. So the audience is in listen-only mode, and those citizens who registered to speak with City Council by the 4 p.m. deadline will be allowed to speak. Their microphones will be turned on by City Secretary. City Secretary, do we have any individuals who have registered in advance to be able to participate in citizen comments?
We have 2, sir.
Okay. So we will call upon them when we get to that. Once again, all votes that we do through our virtual city council meetings will be by roll call vote. Okay. So moving on for the invocation, Mr. Vera Cruz, would you give us the invocation, please?
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, although it seems that things are unstable, we rest everything we have on you, Lord, because we know that you are a solid foundation. So as we move forward, Lord, I dedicate this meeting to you and all that we discuss, Lord. We have a lot of decisions, but we know the Holy Spirit will lead us. I ask that you look after each one of our council members and their families and their safety, our first responders, our executive staff, our department directors, Lord, as we go through this budget and this budget year, that the Holy Spirit help direct their decisions. In your mighty name I pray, amen.
Amen. If you would please rise and give your pledges to our flags. Okay, we are back. And notes. Okay, moving on to item number 1, the mayor's report. One of the things I did have on my mayor's report was to give information to everybody about what we discussed kind of on the city calendar. Was October 10th. We are going to have a I don't know, a reclamation day, I guess. There's going to be shredding of documents. There's going to be bulk dumpsters there for bulk trash. And there's also going to be disposal of electronics in Armstrong Park. And this is going to be from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. So for our citizens that really want to participate in that, please put that on your calendars. That's again at Armstrong Park. And as always, I do give an update in the mayor's report for where we stand on COVID-19 in our city. At the present time, the latest report that we have is 1,232 positive cases in our city. If you break that down by our zip codes, in 75137, that's 527 people. In 75116, that's 705 individuals And to date, we have been notified that there have been 13 COVID-19 deaths in the city of Duncanville. Looking at the overall, in terms of a positivity rate for Dallas County, this positivity rate is a kind of a new statistic that the Texas Department of Health is coming into saying of the individuals that are tested, how many people are being actually diagnosed positive. And that current rate is 9.25% positivity. So there's still a lot of people out there coming down with COVID-19. So the advice, wear a mask, wash your hands, stay home when you can, and be safe. Do everything you possibly can to protect yourselves, because it's still something that is very, very serious. And as Councilmember Jameson mentioned, you know, her daughter's roommate has come down with it. And just today, I was informed of an individual who I have a casual acquaintanceship with here in our city, is a church pastor, has just come down, been diagnosed with COVID-19. So it's around, it's still there. And interestingly, I was pretty disturbed. My wife and I were in a very, very large retail store just 2 days ago, and 99.9% of everyone had on masks, but 2 adults, and I would say they were in their mid-40s, blatantly were walking around the store, not even a mask in hand, not even a mask anywhere, no mask whatsoever. So it's an issue. We have a social issue. So everybody, please, in the city of Duncanville, please protect yourselves and do everything possible to stay safe. That's all I have for the mayor's report. Are there any other, any other mayor's reports? I'm sorry, any other council members' reports? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll go. I see 4. Councilmember Cooks, number 4, District 4. Oh, Don, you had your hand up too?
Yes, sir, but mine's a census. So I encourage people for census.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. Okay, Mark, Councilmember, District 4.
Okay, good, thank you. Hey, no, I wanted to, I know this will be in the citizens comment as well, but I know as this month, as we recognize the Hispanic Heritage Month, I wanted to make sure we recognize the great history of this month. And so congratulations to the Hispanic Heritage Month as we learn more about that culture as well. And then the other thing I wanted to recognize was our council member, Monty Anderson, who will be recognized, I think, this week this week as a community award. So congratulations, Councilmember Monty Anderson, for your upcoming award. And then the last but not least is to meet, connect, and learn. This month, we will talk about an overview of our city budget from 2020 to 2021 and how our tax dollars will be used for the budget this year. The guest is our own Mayor Barry Gordon, as well as our financial director, Richard Summerlin. We will have that by Zoom on Saturday, the 26th from 10 to 11:15, and encourage everyone, if you're available, District 4 and any others, please join us and listen to the overview of our city budget that you'll more so hear tonight, but more so for those ones that are not able to catch us live on our meeting tonight. So that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. District 5, Councilmember Jameson.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We have you. You just muted. Go back off. There you go.
Okay.
There you are.
I wanted to clarify. We don't know if my daughter's roommate is positive. She just got sick and got tested.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we have to wait for the results to get back. So we're just pray that she's not, that it's something else, because she volunteers a lot at homeless shelters. And so we don't know.
Okay.
But that, and congratulations, Monty, on your award that you won. That's all I had to say. I just want to clarify that. We don't know if she's positive.
Okay.
We're hoping it's not.
Thank you. I assume the worst. Okay.
We're waiting.
Okay. Mr. Harvey, Patrick, anything from you?
No, sir.
Okay. All righty. Moving on to item number 2, proclamations and presentations. We have none, so we'll move on to item number 3. Pursuant to section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, any member of the public has the opportunity to address City Council concerning any matter of public business or posted agenda item. However, the act prohibits City Council from deliberating any issues not on the agenda, and such non-agenda items may be referred to city staff for research and any future action. And all persons addressing are subject to council adopted rules and limitations as permitted by law. So we have 2 individuals who have registered to speak during citizen comment period, and the time limit on that, as imposed by our city ordinances, is 2 minutes. So the first one that I have is from Yarahi Cruz. Ms. Cruz, you have 2 minutes. If you please state your name and your address for us, please.
We're moving her over right now. Hold on.
Hello.
We have you. Go ahead, Ms. Cruz.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to, well, first of all, thank you all for all the hard work you're doing for the city. And I just wanted to give a friendly reminder that today starts Hispanic Heritage Month. And I just wanted to recognize that, you know, and sadly, we're not going to be able to celebrate as we would have done it years before this pandemic started. However, that doesn't mean we can't order some delicious food and, you know, to celebrate on our own. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say basically.
Thank you very much for your participation and concern for our city, Yarahi. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The next one that we have, the last one that we have, is from Patricia Ebert at 115 South Greenstone Lane. Kristen, is she there, or does she wish me to read this one?
She wishes you to read it, sir.
Okay. Again, this is Patricia Ebert, 115 South Greenstone Lane. Reading verbatim. When will Duncan, Sims, Stoffels present the new Harrington Park bond improvements renderings to the City Council? At the June 16 City Council meeting, Council asked the firm to return with new renderings. On agenda item 5E, reading verbatim, Republic's 37-cent per month rate increase is in section 7.2 of their contract. Republic will increase rates every year based on the CPI, regardless of the COVID-19 and work from home. That 37-cent per month increase is $4.44 per year per residence. 11,055 residences times 4.44 equals $49,084.20 more revenue for Republic. New paragraph. The 2019 Republic contract had a substantial monthly increase for fewer services. The Hyman Elementary School Republic's recycled dumpster accepts glass for its Dallas customers. We all remember when Republic recycled glass for our city. Yet Republic now charges us more money to no longer recycle glass for our city. End of quote. End of input. Thank you for that, Ms. Ebert. Moving on to item number 4, the consent agenda. The following may be acted upon in one motion. A city council may request items be removed from the consent agenda for individual consideration. I don't believe that that has been done. However, we have been asked to postpone item 4C by the city manager. So, City Secretary, would you please read the consent items?
4A, consider the minutes for the August 4th City Council regular meeting and the August 13th special City Council meeting. 4B, consider a resolution authorizing award of bid number 20-016 Meadow Creek Drive drainage improvements to LaBonda LLC through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $283,106. 4D, consider a resolution approving the terms and conditions of amendment number 3 to the Household Hazardous Waste interlocal agreement with Dallas County to coordinate the planning and implementation of a hazardous waste collection program from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021 for a cost not to exceed $58,856. 4E, consider a resolution agreeing to engage TriStem to perform a contingency-based audit of utility billings paid by the city of Duncanville and franchise fees paid and/or owed to the city by electric, gas, telephone, cable, TV, video, and waste providers. 4F, consider a resolution approving and accepting the terms and conditions of an agreement with Dallas County on behalf of the Health and Human Services Department for a mosquito ground control program attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit A, effective October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, at a rate of $185 per hour.
Thank you, City Secretary. I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve by Ms. Jamison and a second by Mr. McBurnett. Roll call vote, please, City Secretary.
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jamison, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you for that, Council. Consent items are approved. Moving on to item number 5, items for individual consideration. Item 5A is conduct a public hearing on the 2020 proposed tax rate. Mr. Summerlin will be presenting this. And so Mr. Summerlin will make his presentation, and then I will open it up to any individuals who wish to speak on the public hearing aspect of this. So Mr. Summerlin, the chair is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Next slide, please. So I wanted to recap the prior budget and the recap of what we've discussed with our budget previous to this and the tax calculations. So the no new revenue tax rate is the rate that's applied to the current year taxable valuations that would yield approximately the same property tax revenue as in the prior budget year. The voter approval rate, or the VA tax rate, is the maximum rate that city can set without triggering the general election to approve the tax rate. The tax rates that were based on the appraisal district's legally certified estimates that came out in July, the NNR rate was 0.748609 and the VA rate was 0.773007. And at that time, we filed the budget with no change in the tax rate because our current tax rate of 0.743447 fell in the middle of that. So, or actually, it was below both of those rates. So we did not make a change at that time when we filed the budget. Next slide, please. So at the August 13th budget workshop, we presented the estimated NNR and VA tax rate calculations that were based on an estimate of where we thought that the certified roll would end up. And those were much lower than the previous calculations that I just shared with you. And so the council consensus was for staff to receive that certified tax roll from the appraisal district and to recalculate the tax rates, paying close attention to being targeting the recalculated voter approval tax rate. Next slide, please. So the recalculated tax rates that we ended up with after we got the certified tax roll, the NNR tax rate using the certified tax was 0.698961. And then the VA tax rate using the certified tax roll was 0.721852. And so at that time, we revised the budget to reflect a property tax revenue of based on a 7.716852, which is a ½ cent less than the recalculated VA rate. And so next slide, please. So in this chart, I wanted to show in kind of a history, if you will. And remember that before Senate Bill 2, the VA rate was based on an 8% property tax cap. And then for the tax year 2020, that's now based on a 3.5% tax rate. And so you can see that if we had lowered the tax rate to the NNR rate, what type of impact that would have had on our revenues throughout the history going back from 2015 up to the present time. Next slide, please. So on this, I wanted to do a comparison between the proposed tax rate and the NNR tax rate. And so if we look at our property tax general fund revenue, and so this is the total taxes less the amount that would be uncollectible in the current year for delinquent taxes, but collectible in subsequent years, and then taking away the debt service, we would have $17,717,398. And so then if we turned around and said, okay, if we did that same calculation based on the NNR rate, that would come out to $17,240,718, which is a $476,680 decrease. Next slide, please. So the council direction that staff received at the September 1st, 2020 City Council meeting was to proceed with the proposed rate of 0.716852. And so we prepared and published the required notice that we were going to have, or the tax rate would be, the proposed tax rate would be 716,852. And we also prepared the notice for the public hearing and published that to be in legal requirement of 716,852. Next slide. And so I'll turn it over at this point back to the mayor to conduct the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Summerlin. City Secretary, do we have any individuals who have registered to speak during the public hearing?
We did not, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will dispense with opening and closing a public hearing.
Mayor, this is Bob.
Yes, sir.
We're required by law to hold it. You'll have to open it and then read into the record that no one has signed up to speak and then close it, but you must open it and close it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We will then open the public hearing at 7:28 p.m., September 15th. And I will mention, in accordance with what the city attorney has advised, that we do not have anyone registered to speak during the public hearing. So I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Yes, so moved.
So that was, I think, Mr. Mac Burnett moved, and I think it was Councilmember Jameson seconded. Did I have that right?
I think it was Cooks and Harvey.
Oh, Cook.
Oh,
That's why we need help. Okay, Cooks.
picky.
Cooks made the motion to approve closing the hearing, and it was seconded by Councilmember Harvey. Please take a roll call vote on closing the public hearing, please.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem Mac Burnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you very much. We are closing the public hearing at 7:29 p.m. Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Summerlin by any of the city council members? Mr. Cooks, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I won't have any questions. I'll continue to make that comment about funding 2 additional police officers for our 2021 budget year. And I understand that during mid-year, we will relook at this again and get some additional feedback. But I do feel that funding 2 additional police officer would be good. So just wanted to make sure for the record, I've stated that again during this budget time.
Thank you for that. We do have it on the record. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Summerlin? Okay, seeing none, we'll close item 5A and move on to item 5B. Consider an ordinance approving and adopting a budget for the city for the fiscal year October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, providing that expenditures for said fiscal year shall be made in accordance with said budget, and ratifying the revised fiscal year 2020 budget section with section 7 of the attached ordinance. Mr. Summerlin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I wanted to do a very quick overview of the budget. Next slide, please. This is our all funds combined, our total budgeted revenues by source, 61.5 million. And you can see how that's broken down. 31% property tax, 15% sales tax, 15% waste water fees, 13% water fees, and then all the other smaller pieces of our revenues, transfers, garbage fees, franchise receipts, field house revenue, other revenue, hotel occupancy tax, and drainage fees. Next slide, please. So then we wanted to look at our general fund and look at the revenue by source. Of course, a little over 55% of our general fund revenue is from property tax. That's the biggest slice. And then we look at our sales tax, which is a little over 22%, and then transfers at a little over 8%, franchise receipts at about 5.25%, permits and fines at 6%, interest income and other at 3.5%. Next slide. Now look at our total fiscal year 21 general fund expenses by type. Of course, the city is heavy with personnel in terms of being a service organization. That's natural. So it only goes to show that our salaries and our benefits comprise right at 63% of the total expenditures. And then services and maintenance at 24.5%, supplies at a little over 4%, internal services at 2.8%, one-time projects at 2%, transfers out at 1.26%, and then very teeny slices of debt service and capital. Next slide, please. So our major revenue changes, Senate Bill 2, of course, reduced the property tax, as I mentioned earlier in the tax rate briefing, that change lowered the property tax cap from 8% to 3.5%. And that, of course, significantly reduces all cities' primary revenue, which is property tax. Senate Bill 1152 reduced certain franchise tax payments that were paid by telecom cable companies that use a city-owned right-of-way to house their equipment and lines. It allows them to pay the lesser of the two if they pay to. And then along came COVID-19, and we had somewhat of a major impact to our sales tax revenues due to businesses that are generating sales tax being closed or at a minimum reducing their tax generating activity. And so on top of that, Duncanville lost a very major sales tax generating company that happened in the beginning of the year in December, January, that was not even related to COVID-19. Next slide, please. So with all of those challenges, and this has been an unprecedented budget process, from having delays in receiving appropriate tax information and being able to set the appropriate tax rates, all the way down to finalizing the budget. It's just really been a challenge. But despite all of those challenges, here we are, and we're able to bring forth a budget that offers 75 days of fund balance, which is a very conservative. Most cities shoot for a 60-day fund balance of operations. So we anticipate with this budget that we will have about 6.7 million still in our ending fund balance at the end of this year, or at the end of fiscal year 21, pardon me. Next slide, please. So some of the general fund budget highlights, we of course have $466,000 increase in property tax revenue because of our taxable valuations increasing. That was more than offset by $566,831 decrease in the sales tax revenue that I just mentioned, that was due to the combination of a loss of a major sales tax generator plus the effect of the pandemic on our tax generating businesses. We had another $127,000 decrease in franchise receipts tied to Senate Bill 1152, and that combined with already the erosion of telephone and cable franchise revenues as people go to cell phone technology and or go away from cable to other cheaper methods of getting TV and movie streaming. We had $205,000 that we cut in travel and training, insurance, and some position reorganizations. We had a $17,000 reduction in our fleet replacement contributions because we had a healthy fund balance in our fleet rotation fund. We decreased, had a $49,737 decrease from savings from taking the detention center out of the general fund, going to a regional jail implementation. And then on the increase side, we budgeted for $188,229 increase in compensation, and this would be for a 2% increase across the board, and this would only happen at mid-year. And so we took the conservative approach. Most of our surrounding cities were doing some type of compensation increase at the beginning of the fiscal year, but we decided to do a mid-year adjustment so that we can have more time and flexibility to see how our sales tax and the general economy, how that functions and performs. $838,000 increase in funding for the P25 public radio system, and that total cost was approximately $2 million. So with the $838,000 plus $350 last year, we got a little over $1 million, and so we got about half of that funded, but we're still going to have to come up with a little less than $1 million more to complete that funding. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges, of course, this budget has no new programs, no new projects, no new positions. We're trying to hold the line on everything. Maintaining services at the current levels with our current staffing continues to be a challenge. As the other cities continue to increase their pay and benefits, us maintaining competitive pay and benefits. Compliance with unfunded regulatory and reporting mandates is difficult to achieve with our lean staffing, and those mandates continue to increase whether our staffing increases or not. Restoration of deferred street maintenance and other building and equipment maintenance costs also continue to present challenges. Next slide, please. So I wanted to demonstrate here. This shows the average payroll per employee. We compare it to a group of cities that for the last several years we've compared our payroll to in certain positional evaluations for these cities. And so as you can see, Duncanville is one from the bottom. We're very low on the totem pole on the average payroll per employee. So that means we have a very lean group. Next slide, please. One of the other things that is a good benchmark to look at is to look at total taxable value per capita. And so I compare us to Lancaster, Cedar Hill, DeSoto, our sister cities, and then Dallas, which also bumps up against us. And you can see that we're very much on the bottom there. In fact, I took the average of Lancaster, Cedar Hill, and DeSoto and compared that to Duncanville, and we're 27% lower than those three cities average. Next slide, please. And so here, another way to look at that is total tax levy per capita. Same thing, we're on the very lowest end of that spectrum at $483 per person. And same calculation, I did the Cedar Hill, DeSoto, Lancaster average, compared it to Duncanville. We're 27% lower than our neighbor cities. Next slide, please. Also, I like to remind people that when they look at their property tax bill, that approximately 52% of that goes to the school district, and only a little over 25% goes to the city of Duncanville. And then the various Dallas County entities get the remainder. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give a quick overview of our utility fund balance. We, for the last couple of years, have been reserving $5 million in fund balance for AMI. It's just a memo type reserve. There's no legal aspect to that reserve. It's just that we set it aside in a memo fashion. And so we've been drawing down on fund balance because we have not raised our utility rates in the past couple of years. And so we anticipate about a 37-day fund balance at the end of fiscal year 21 because we are drawing down on that fund balance. And that would be about $1,972,000 after you take out the reserve for AMI. Next slide, please. This is just a slide showing historically what our ending fund balance has been. And as you can see, in fiscal year 12 and 13, we were fairly low with about a 3.2 million fund balance, and then sunk even lower in FY14, but we also instituted a 5-year rate increase program. And so we started building back fund balance from 14 through 18. And then fiscal year 19, we were without a rate increase and stayed pretty well the same in 19 as 18. And then we began drawing down on that fund balance for fiscal year 20. Fiscal year 21, as you see us eating into our fund balance because we're not raising our rates. Next slide. Show real quickly with the TML survey of cities for population group between 30 and 50,000 people. There were 23 cities in this group, and we ranked 14 from the highest to the lowest. We ranked 14 down from the top for residential based on 5,000 gallons of usage. And next slide, please. Same thing with wastewater. Unfortunately, we ranked quite a bit higher on this one, actually third from the top. And the thing that I do like to point out is that it's impossible to know for sure what method the other cities use for calculating their wastewater cost. We use a winter averaging method, which takes the assumption that the water usage during winter months is not going for irrigation, that it is all going down into the sewer. And so we take that winter average and apply that for an entire year, and it changes each year after winter months averaging. And so people have the opportunity to really watch their water usage and to lower their bill during those winter months each year. Some cities don't do that. A lot of cities charge the same year round. Whatever you use for water, you pay for sewer, whether it's summer, spring, winter, fall. Next slide, please. Then we get into the solid waste fund. Again, we've been drawing down on our fund balance for the last several years, and you can see that fiscal year 21 is no different with an anticipated increase in our solid waste contract. We will be ending the year with about a $426,000 fund balance, which is only about 35 days of operation. We would prefer to be at 60 days of operation, so well below that. Next slide, please. So the language here that I have is the language that must be used in a motion to adopt the budget, and this is required by Senate Bill 2 and the Texas Government Code.
Thank you, Mr. Sumlin. Is there a city council member who wishes to read this motion?
Mayor, I'd be happy to read the motion.
Mr. McBurnett.
Councilmember Jameson is raising her hand.
Yes, I wanted to ask a question. When you go back to the employee compensation, okay, I'm curious. We right now we have an interim city manager, so we are without a city manager. Did you include the salary when you're giving us the average compared to other cities? Was the city manager's pay included in here, or is it excluded?
Councilwoman, this is Todd Siegel, and yes, his salary was included when the slide was prepared.
Okay, and so the previous one too, when you're comparing it?
Correct.
Okay.
Good question. Good question. Thank you. So Mr. McBurnett, can we go to the final slide, please? Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I move adoption of the fiscal year 2020-21 budget and the revised fiscal year 2019-20 budget is presented in the City Council agenda packet. This budget will raise more property taxes than last year's budget by $464,905 or 2.48%. And of that amount, $90,195 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Harvey. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you, City Council, for unanimous approval of the budget. Moving on to item number 5C. Consider an ordinance levying ad valorem taxes for the year 2020 at a rate of $0.716852 per $100 assessed valuation on all taxable property within the corporate city limits of the city as of January 1, 2020, to provide revenues for current expenses and interest and sinking fund requirements, providing for due and delinquent dates together with penalties and interest. Mr. Summerlin.
Thank you, Mayor. Next slide, please. So again, just recapping Senate Bill 2, the NNR tax rate is the rate that's applied to current year taxable valuations that would yield approximately the same amount of revenue as in the previous year. And then the voter approval tax rate's the maximum rate you can set without triggering a general election. And that cap and calculating the rate was reduced from 8% to 3.5% under Senate Bill 2. Next slide, please. So if we do the comparison of the tax rate, our current tax rate to the NNR rate and the VA rate, you can see that the NNR rate's about 5.98% less, and the NNR rate is rather, and the VA rate's about 2.9% above the current tax rate. Next slide, please. Then I wanted to also compare that to the proposed tax rate. So the NNR rate about 2.5% less than the proposed tax rate, and it's approximately 0.70% less than the VA rate. Next slide, please. This is the same thing. This is the motion that's required in the property tax code. So it's required to be verbatim.
Thank you. The chair will accept a motion to read and approve.
I
Mayor,
move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.716852 per $100 valuation, which is effectively a 2.56% increase in the tax rate.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Harvey. Is there a second?
I will second, Mayor. This is Don.
We have a second from Councilmember Mac Burnett. Roll call vote by City Secretary, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem Mac Burnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jamison, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you, City Council, for the unanimous approval of item 5C. Moving on to item 5D. Consider an ordinance ratifying the fiscal year 2021 budget, which raises more revenue from property tax than in the previous year. Once again, Mr. Summerlin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So section 102.007C of the Texas Local Government Code requires a ratification vote on a budget that raises more revenue from property taxes than the previous year. The vote must be separate from the adoption of the budget or the tax rate. And so since the city of Duncanville has experienced an increase in our property valuations, even though we're lowering the property tax, the proposed tax rate will generate more revenue. And so therefore this ordinance must be approved in compliance with state law. Next slide, please. And this again is the required motion to ratify the adopted budget.
Thank you, Mr. Summerlin. The chair will accept a motion to read this motion.
I'll do so, Mayor.
Mr. McBurnett.
I move ratification of fiscal year 21 budget will raise more property taxes than last year's budget by $464,905 or 2.48%. And of that amount, $90,195 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. McBurnett. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I see Mr. Veracruz's hand go up. Mr. Veracruz has seconded the motion. City Secretary, roll call vote, please. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Councilmember Vera Cruz, for or against?
4.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
4.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
4.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
4.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
4.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
4. Thank you, City Council. Again, we are doing an exceptional job of doing what's best for our city. These are not easy times. My thanks to Mr. Summerlin and his entire department and all of our city staff for bringing us to this point and evaluating our entire city in terms of its revenues and its expenses, and knowing that we're doing the very best we can to continue to serve our citizens in the manner in which they're accustomed, and in fact, what is our obligation as part of our city to our citizens as well. So thank you, Council, and thank you to all of our staff for that. Moving on to item 5E. Consider a resolution approving Republic Waste Services of Texas Limited request to the City of Duncanville to increase contract rates on the Municipal Materials Management Agreement by 2.0% for residential collection and 2.91% for commercial services, effective October 1, 2020. Mr. Ramey, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
We have you.
All right. So again, this is to talk about the solid waste collection rate increase for the contract. Next slide, please. So just some background. Back in July of 2019 is when we renewed the solid waste collection contract with Republic Services. As you all know, that was the first contract that we had let for solid waste collection in approximately 20 years. The contract, under this contract, we have an initial 7-year term that runs from September 2019 through September 2026. And then after that, we would have agreements to renew in successive 5-year periods until, unless terminated in advance by the City of Republic. Next slide. Within the contract, it does allow the contractor to request an annual rate adjustment that is tied to the consumer price index for all urban consumers under the water, sewer, trash collection. And then, so on 9/3, staff received Republic's request to increase the contract for residential by 2.0%. and increase the contract rates for the commercial by 2.91% based on the June CPI. And again, 2.91 was the CPI for June. The effective rate would go, the rates would go into be effective on 1 October 2020. Next slide, please. So based on Republic's proposed rate, here is a summary of the rates. I've shown both the impact to the solid waste collection contract that reflects the rate or what Republic receives from the city per month. And then the second bullet is how the rate, a rate increase for Republic would affect the rate that the citizens pay on their utility bill from the city as shown in the master fee schedule. And that's something that you will be approving later tonight. So again, based on the 2% solid increase, you'll see that it goes up 37 cents, and you'll see the breakdown. Again, we're summarizing the level of service that we have under this contract. Trash pickup twice a week, recycling pickup once per week, and bulk and brush picked up twice per month at 10 cubic yards. And you see where the 37 cents. In terms of the impact to the residents based on increases in the master fee schedule that we would have to do to absorb the cost increase, curbside service would go up 37 cents, which is tied to the solid waste contract. And that reflects 1.5% increase to their bill from $23.99 to $24.36. And then the alleys would go up similarly 1.5%, but because alleys pay a little bit more, their rate actually goes up 46 cents. And again, what I want to point out is that the rate that the citizens pay as part of their utility bill encompasses not only the solid waste collection costs, which we're talking about tonight, but they also cover the landfill costs. They cover alley CIP projects, which is one of the reasons why the alley rate is higher than the curb rate. It covers the household hazardous waste expenses. It covers Operation Clean Duncanville, and it covers sanitation administration. Next slide, please. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Robin Motor with Republic. She's got some slides showing some metrics, and then she'll also be able to answer questions that you may have regarding this rate increase. I'll turn it over to Robin.
Thank you, Greg, and good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and staff. So Greg has my slides loaded, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to connect virtually with you all tonight. Greg, if you can put up my first slide, that would be great. So I want to present, of course, the annual rate adjustment with you per the agreement tonight. The requested increase is per the agreement, which is falls in line with the July CPI consumer index, which, as Greg said, was at 2.9%, and it's applied to all customers in Duncanville. However, Republic has agreed to minimize that impact on the residential rate increase by 32% and apply a 2% increase to the residents. So rather than the 57% impact, they will be receiving a 37-cent impact for this 2020 into 2021 annual year. So as we go into this first slide, I just want to kind of highlight some historical information. So at the top of this slide, if you can see, we're going back to March 2019. I went back to March 2019 so that we can highlight, because we all know March 2020, we had, COVID hit, just to kind of look back and compare. So that first slide you'll see reflects the call data per month for the last 18 months and going back. So you'll see October last year, we did peak when a change in contract was implemented, lots of calls, questions, inquiries on that service change. And then the inbound stats for year over year, though, for March to August, reflect a decline in call volume. So after folks and residents really got used to what that change in their new, the new contract, the new service was, things did settle down. So we haven't, even though COVID has hit, even though folks are at home, they are cleaning things out. You can see here on our call stats for the Duncanville calls, things are lower than they were last year at this time. So moving down to the bottom graph on that same slide, you're going to see that our residential tons are listed. So the graph includes all debris collected at the curb.
Am I the only one that's lost her audio? Has everyone lost it?
Can't hear it.
We lost it.
Ms. Moda, we have lost your audio.
I'm trying.
I'm texting her now.
It appears that she lost internet connection.
Mayor, this is Greg. I'm calling Robin now.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, it's reconnecting right now. Bye. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we have you now.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. So I'm going to back up just a second. On that bottom graph, you're going to see the residential tons, which includes the debris collected at the curb, solid waste, the bulk, the brush, and the recycle. And so in March of 2020, you will see that a spike, which I think all of us will anticipate just with COVID, everyone moving all of their tons or all of their debris home. And so then after that, you see that it comes down a little bit after March, but it doesn't come all the way back down to that customary average as of yet. We don't know if it's the new normal, but it's not quite back down to where it typically is. So right here, I would like to point out that during April to June timeframe, while bulk was suspended in this community, as many of our other communities, the tonnage at the curb continue to be extremely high for residents. You know, they're eating at home for meals. They're having additional items shipped to the home for household services like groceries, shopping, work necessities, and entertainment. You know, we've got extra things coming in. So there's extra debris coming in that we're picking up. And so while they're also at home, they're also continuing to clean out, take that prime time opportunity to clean out, you know, those closets, the garages, sheds, and yards. So anything that they could put in a bag and put at the curb, we were continuing to pick up during that time. And as you all know, the city we worked with the city and we did offer, or the city did offer those resources for the residents to bring their bulk down and drop it off during those bulk events. But anyone that did not bring those bulk event or bulk items down during those 7 events, they happily stored those on their property, and they brought those out, you know, during June 15th. They saved those for us, and they brought those out starting June 15th when we reinstated the bulk services. And so we gathered those starting on June 15th, and we still collected them. So you're going to see that spike back in June, where that debris and that tons, that all those gathered items in the garage or backyard came back out to the curb and we collected. So it might not have been collected during that time, but they were saving it for us, and we got it back out of the curb and we collected it. With the increase in the volume at the curb, our trucks do fill up faster because, you know, everyone has so much more at their curb than they additionally had planned for. And so when that happens, we have to break off a little bit earlier than we originally, our operation plans were designed to do so, and go to the landfill. And so on this next slide, if you'll go to slide 2, maybe. It shows the disposal trips. And so what disposal trips mean to us for the year-over-year figures for disposal, and this is where we're going to Skyline Landfill, where Duncanville has a contract. The additional trips to landfill prolong those routes because we're having to break away more often and make that trip to the landfill, is that the route day is longer, and it ultimately increases the operating hours and labor hours for that day. So when we're making more trips to landfill and those days are longer for that driver, there's only so many hours they can work per DOT regulations. And so it really stretches us on those operating hours. So that's why disposal trips are so important for us when we're talking that language on disposal. And so disposal trips translate into operating hours for us, because tonnage goes into disposal trips, translates into operating hours. And so that last slide is the same information that you guys have. It's the same information from the prior two slides. It's just for those of you that are more Excel driven and want to see it in a spreadsheet format, if you go to slide 3, it's broken out in that, there you go. And that numbers in spreadsheet format versus the graph format, so that you can look at it in the, side by side. So again, the CPI that's being presented tonight is just basic per the contract language. We're not asking for anything additional. Republic has reduced the impact to the residential line of business by the 32%. So we're versus what we were contractually obligated. So they're getting the impact of 2% versus the 2.9. So it's a 17-cent savings to the residents. And that really concludes my presentation. I'm open and ready for questions if you have any for me.
Yes, Ms. Moto, this is Barry Gordon.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it. It wasn't specified in our package, but you just stated, I want to make sure I understood that in June of 2020, the DOL came out with the CPI, and what you're saying was 2.91%. Is that correct?
Yes, so we use per the contract, we use the same month year over year just to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And it's actually the July CPI for the Duncanville contract that we use every year.
Okay, and DOL did say 2.91%, and what you're saying is you're passing on for our residential customers a 2% increase versus what could be authorized by the contract of a 2.91% increase, but you're applying the 2.91 to commercial. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Is there any possibility of applying only a 2% to our commercial as well as our residential?
We have looked at it, Mayor Gordon, and it was a real struggle to get to the 2% with the residential. As you remember during negotiations with the new contract, that we had a big jump in prices at the contract because there had been years where we had not applied an increase, or that there had been a decrease in the increase, a slight a lower impact on the increase. And this is our first increase coming into the new contract, and there was not an opportunity at this point, especially with the new COVID additional resources that we have put into this year, to apply any further discount at this time, unfortunately.
And from what I'm understanding, what you just said, you are always looking at June as the month for determining the CPI. Is that correct?
It's July.
July. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what the DOL CPI has been for August and September? Or probably forget September. I know they haven't come out with it. Do we have any idea what August looks like?
August actually went up. We were anticipating it to go down, but August actually went up and was in the 3% increase. So July was favorable to the city this year.
Mayor, when I pulled the CPIs on August 12th was when they pulled the July. It was 3.4%.
That is correct.
Yeah, I should have done that research this afternoon, but it just occurred to me. That's why I needed to ask the question now. So I thank you for having that information.
That is correct.
And so now the tough question, Ms. Moda, is if council, as a majority, chooses not to approve this rate increase, what is the effect on Republic in terms of its service to our city?
So the contract does state that the increase per the CPI is due annually, and that the council may not unjustly not approve it. So I have not truthfully and candidly had a written in language annual increase not be approved by council, truthfully, Mayor Gordon. And we would come back to you next month to ask for this again, because our operating costs through COVID, especially on the residential side, have been impacted to where we haven't approached the council, for assistance on that side. And we're not approaching council right now for assistance on that side. We're just asking for the annual cost that is written in the contract, so we're not coming for the second part of the contract language that asks for anything above and beyond operational costs. We're just asking for the annual piece that is allowed per contract language. So to answer your question, that I would have to go back to legal and, to my general manager for that, because I have not been faced with that prior to now.
Okay, Mr. Ramey, I believe in your briefing, you mentioned something about the city. If this is not approved, the city would have to absorb this increased cost. So it would be passed on internally, but not externally to our city. Did I understand you correctly with that?
No, that part was related to the master fee schedule, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which is to follow. So that's the debate there, is if you wanted to absorb the cost of this increased contract and
okay. So
pass it on to the residents.
So that absorption would occur through some other fees through the master fee schedule, and not through the contract through the Republic itself. If I'm understanding what you're saying.
Maybe
Let me make that clear. No, what the master fee schedule, it is built to assume that if this is adopted, it's already in the master fee schedule. If it's not, the master fee schedule would have to be amended. The absorption would come out of the fund balance for the solid waste fund. So that is where that absorption would come from, because you would then not be passing that on to the end user.
Okay, there's the key. I was trying to scrub this down to get that, and so there's an understanding when things are mentioned, maybe somewhat casually, that there's a greater quantitative impact, and that's what I was trying to scrub down to find out exactly what that term absorption would mean to us. So thank you for that explanation, Mr. Fenton.
And the contract language that Ms. Moda refers to is, if you go to Exhibit A, our Exhibit A, Exhibit I of the contract, which it states is that the company must receive approval from the city to increase base rates. The city shall not unreasonably withhold the approval of such requests. So, of course, unreasonable is the vague term of what city council determines is a just increase or not.
Right, and we can thank lawyers for using that term as well. So, no offense, Mr. Hager, but I understand. Reasonable is a legal term that's been used for centuries, and nobody really understands it. So it's okay.
Mayor, and also my past experience has been there's usually a service-based reason why a city would consider not giving the contracted for amount, and therefore that strikes at the reasonability clause. So unless there is a service-based reason for us to consider then the contract calls for the CPI increase.
Got
And
it. Thank you.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Moto or Mr. Ramey? Ms. Jamison, yes, I see your hand.
I'm just curious, Robin, is this going to happen every year?
Per the contract, there is an annual increase built in every year. It's the annual cost per living that, the .gov annual CPI that is built in. And I'm certain that, Richard and his team have that built in as well with your budget. That's why it's in October that we have it scheduled. So, and it varies for the CPI also, just as the .gov index does. So, just like in July, it was 2.9 with COVID and everything impacting it had gone down some because typically it's been around that 3.3%. So it had gone down to match and mirror the COVID expenses. So yes, it does happen every year, but it does mirror the old contract also to where it was matching CPI index prior to as well.
Okay. The reason why we do budget is because the state requires it to be in by October 1st.
Right.
Now, I don't know what Richard Summerlin has up his sleeve on his increases for us, but I was curious about this because I've heard from some citizens also. So, this is relatively palatable. However, I don't know about every year this built-in increase. That might be something we as a council need to talk about and look into, because a built-in increase every year is wild. So on trash. So, you talk about the pandemic, because people have been affected and incomes and losing jobs and all sorts of things. So that's something we have to look at because they've been stretched to the limit. And, once again, we appreciate that you didn't go up as much as you could have. However, we still have to look out for the people who've been affected. And so this probably is something that we'll need to have discussions on, I think, in the future about, what's tolerable. And, I don't know, because we're always asked about other trash companies in comparison and what are they doing. And I don't know. So we appreciate what you have done to minimize it rather than maximize it, but it still is of concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I see your hand.
Yes. I don't ever remember talking about this when we were negotiating this contract. And out of principle, because of that, I'm going to be voting against this.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cooks.
Yeah. Hey, Robin, do you recall, you mentioned in your old contract, I guess that's 2018 to 2019. What was the CPI difference then?
The CPI was also built in the old contract annual at the renewal date. So the CPI, I don't know your question on that as in the difference, but it had the same annual increase date. So on the increase date that it was upon the CPI language, do you mean what index was referenced? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So the CPI at that date was just the CPIU, versus the CPI water, sewer, trash. So the CPI-U is an index that includes many different things. It includes clothing. It includes something, some sort of foods. It includes many things that do not have anything to do with our business and industry. However, the water, sewer, trash has indexes that, or items within the index that align with our industry, which, you know, plastic for carts, metal and steel for trucks, fuel, things that really align with our costs to do business. And so we have moved over to that index, which align with our cost to do business.
Okay. Hey, Richard, what would be the total amount if we did not pass this on to citizens? What's the total amount? Do I add all of these 2020 amounts up to get that total, or is that, do you have that total?
I don't have that calculated, but I will take this as I very clearly presented in the budget, that we're already at 35 days fund balance. And so any absorption without passing on the increase is just going to further erode that fund balance. And you're going to be probably pulling that down to a very marginable amount, so that if there's any type of catastrophic event, there won't be funds available. No, I haven't had an opportunity to calculate what this impact would be if we absorb it.
And then I heard you say that when we looked at this, how do we handle it last time? When under the old contract, did we pass it on under the old contract to the citizens?
Most years when there was a CPI increase, a lot of years we were able to pass on a rate increase, but many of those years we did have rate increases.
So over the last few years, we've passed on this CPI to the resident.
I can't remember if we've done it every. I don't think we've done it every year. I think we did do a garbage rate increase, a small one in 2018. I think it was, if my memory's correct.
Okay.
Or 2019, I can't remember. One of those years we did, but not both years.
Okay. I had another question, but I'll come back. I'm having to think of what it was at this point.
Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. This, just to clarify, I mean, CPIs are part of these contracts, and it was included as part of this contract as well. And I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve this.
So Mr. McBurnett has made a motion to approve item 5E. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Harvey. City Secretary, please take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against.
Before the vote.
I'm sorry, what?
I do have a question before the vote. I'm sorry. Is there any way before we vote on this that we could table this item and look back at it, get more information from Richard, have more time to look at this a little bit longer before we vote on it?
There's been a motion to approve, and there's also been a second. To interject that question right now really is inappropriate. Can't do it.
Let me ask the city attorney, how could that be handled?
You have to make a motion to table it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to table this item.
Second.
Motion has been made to table this item by Mr. Cooks, has been seconded by Councilmember Jameson. City Secretary, please take a roll call vote on a motion to table this item.
Bob, real quick, let me interject. There's already a motion to approve. So Bob, do we need to take action on that original motion first?
No, the motion to table takes precedent over the main motion.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
So council, just to make sure what you're voting on a motion to table this item. For means it's going to be tabled. Against means it's not going to be tabled, and we'll move on to the motion to approve made by Mr. McBurnett. Just want to clarify what you're voting on. Mr. Cooks.
And before we do that, I'm not saying I'm totally against this. I just want to get a little bit more information of the total this period before we move it on. And so I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I really want to still get more information, whether from Robin or from Richard, and provide us with additional information other than what we just heard today. So that's the only reason I'm asking the table.
I understand. So we will continue with the roll call vote to table this particular item. City Secretary.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interject. Going back to Councilmember Cook's question, I have had time to think through the process, and actually the way that we presented the budget, it included the cost increase on the expenditure side, but it did not anticipate or include any increase on the rates. And so basically that projected 35-day fund balance that includes this rate increase.
Say that, repeat that, please. Because okay. I just heard something that was conflicting with what you just said in terms of what is and isn't included. Say again, please, Richard.
Okay, in the budget overview where I showed you the 35-day fund balance, that's where we project to end fiscal year 21. On the expense side, it shows the contractual increase that was programmed in. But on the revenue side, it does not show an increase.
So to answer Mr. Cooks's question, what we have already approved is the information he is seeking.
That is correct.
Mr. Cooks, do you wish to withdraw your motion to table?
No.
All right, we still have a motion on the floor, and the motion is to table this particular item. And as we're doing a roll call vote to table, a vote in favor tables the item, a vote against continues on with the motion to approve. Roll call vote by City Secretary, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
Against.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
Against.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
Against.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
Against. The vote is 4-3 against. The motion is failed. Moving on to the motion to approve item 5E. Please take a roll call vote, City Secretary.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
Against.
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
Against.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
Against.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. The vote is again 4-3 in favor of the motion. The motion has passed. Moving on to item 5F. Consider an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2020-2021 master fee schedule, which is attached here to and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. Mr. Summerlin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Next slide, please. So the council adopts the master fee schedule each year. And we do that so that we ensure that our fees are reviewed annually. And all the changes to any of the fee schedules were notated in the light blue turquoise column that was titled Adopted Change for Fiscal Year 2021. The schedules that we provided in your agenda packet. The solid waste garbage collection fees increased, so we already had that programmed in. And there are no changes to the water and wastewater fees. Next slide. And with that, I'll answer questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Summerlin on this particular item? Item 5F. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote on item 5F. Consider an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2020-21 master fee schedule attached here to and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
I need a motion and a
Need a
second.
motion, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought my bad. I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Mr. Harvey has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cooks has made a second. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem Mac Burnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
Or
Councilmember Cooks, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Jameson, for or against?
For.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
Or, thank you, City Council, for unanimous approval of item 5F. Moving on to item 5G, consider resolution casting votes for places 1 through 4 of the Board of Trustees for the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool. Mr. Summerlin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As I provided in the packet, since we are a member of the TML IRP, we do have a vote. There are 4 places that are up for election, and we can cast 1 vote for each place. I have no personal knowledge of any of these people except the incumbent for place 4, Robert Hawk. I work with him on the TCAP board, and I'll be glad to share my knowledge of that. Otherwise, it's up to the council to select a candidate or cast a vote.
Okay, I have looked through all of the short bios that have been provided to us, and I as well have no personal knowledge and no additional knowledge to provide to the City Council in terms of these individuals. So what we're looking at, place 1 is the incumbent only. There is no additional individual who is seeking placement for place 1. In place 2, there are 2 individuals. One is the incumbent, one is not. In place 3, there are 3 individuals seeking election, 1 incumbent, 2 additional. And for place 4, there is 1 incumbent, and that is Mr. Hawk that Mr. Summerlin has just mentioned, and 3 other individuals. So
I make a motion that we vote for the incumbents.
Ms. Jameson.
I'll second.
Sorry, Ms. Jameson, Mr. talked over just a second there. I hear, go once again, please, Ms. Jameson.
I said, I'm sorry, I don't know any of these people either. So I make a motion that we just vote for the incumbents.
Right.
And I agree, Mayor, and I second the motion.
Okay. Good motion. Maybe I'm not even permitted to say that, but it's a good motion. I think it's agreeable. So the motion on the floor, Mr. Cooks, thank you for that affirmative smile. We have a motion on the floor to approve the incumbents as listed in the attachment to item 5G. And that motion has been made by Councilmember Jameson, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Mac Burnett. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
For.
Mayor Pro Tem Mac Burnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Did you get Mr. Harvey?
I did.
Yeah,
Okay.
she got me.
Ah. It's always that way. Okay. Thank you. That motion is approved to place the vote for the incumbents, Mr. Summerlin. Okay, that concludes our items for individual consideration, except for taking action on the executive session, which we have not yet done. So as we agreed earlier, at this point in time, we are going to.
Mayor,
Yeah, I know we need to read it. Yes.
Mayor, no, we have the receipt of the economic development report. We're willing to answer any questions. If council has any questions before we go to executive session.
Yeah, there it is. It's on the back page. I'm sorry, I missed that on my agenda. Thank you. Any questions from the city council members on the economic development quarterly report? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. James, for assembling that information for us. All right, so we are now going to go to, let me get to the right page, executive session. I will read executive session and then we'll take a timestamp on it. Executive session, city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 550.71 of the Texas Government Code to seek legal advice from the city attorney about pending litigation and claims in the following manners. 1, Eon Reality Management Agreement lease, security interest. Item number 2, city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters, to receive a report from the city attorney concerning a complaint alleging a violation of Code of Ethics by a board of director of Duncanville Community Economic Development Corporation, to wit, Dave Galbraith. So the timestamp, we are recessing our city council at 8:42 p.m. Council members, if you would please leave this session and go to executive session, we'll meet you there. Okay, we're reconvening city council at 10:05. And we're going back to executive session. Item number 1, city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 550.71 of the Texas Government Code to seek legal advice from the city attorney about pending litigation and claims of the following matters. On this item, there is no action to be taken. On item number 2, city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters, to receive a report from the city attorney concerning a complaint alleging a violation of Code of Ethics by a board of director, Community Economic Development Corporation, to it, Dave Galbraith. Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. After making that presentation and deliberation under as provided in the Code of Ordinances surrounding this matter, I would, at your instruction, prepare a motion for the council to consider. And the motion is to issue a letter of notification that any disclosure by the EDC board member was unintentional, and to request that the board member meet with the mayor to avoid any future violations.
I make that motion.
I second it.
Mr. Harvey has made the motion. It's been seconded by Ms. Jameson. Ms. City Secretary, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Veracruz, 4 are against. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Jameson, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you very much, City Council. The motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, with that, that concludes our business for the evening. And City Council for September the 15th, 2020 is adjourned at 10:08. Thank you very much.